Hi guys, Darrell Smith here again from South Dakota. As mentioned earlier, I was, after my military training, my first duty station was Cherry Point, North Carolina, where we got checked out on the A4 Skyhawk, and we flew it nearly every day, and it was stressful. I thought training would be easier once I got in the squadron, but training goes on for pilots all the time. Well, there were several activities that could be done in the area, and Glenda encouraged me to take part in them, in that she felt I was stressed most of the time or some of the time, and I needed to get my mind off of my work. So she encouraged me to take advantage of these opportunities, and there are several of them. I'll go over a couple of them here today. First was bow hunting. Larry Gibson, I've mentioned him several times, and I decided we wanted to learn to shoot the bow and arrow. So we purchased some cheap equipment, and we practiced several times, day and night. We got where we could hit a target pretty good most of the time. I, as a growing up, had hunted rabbits and squirrels on the farm in Tennessee, but no big game. There was just none of that around, and I could not afford to go where the big game was. So, but I discovered that on the base itself, it was a big wooded area. There were quite a number of white-tailed deer. So I decided to make an effort to hunt the deer. So I bought some hunting arrows, and I found trails in the woods where they had, obviously a bunch of them had gone through there. And so one day before daylight, my first hunt, before daylight, I got in the proper place, and I had scouted it out, and I parked myself about 2 yards from their main route of travel. Well, before daylight, it was still dark, but I could just make out shape. Two deer walked as close to me. I felt like I could reach out and touch them, but there was no way to get any kind of a shot at them. So now I've learned a little bit. Next time I went hunting, I positioned myself about 10 yards from the trail. Well, that was too close too, and the deer saw me and bounded away. The third position was in a little clump of trees where the trail kind of divided and went on both sides, and I got in that clump of trees. Well, as the deer came down the trail, I was in full view of them. They would stop and look and say, "Oh my," and here he is again, and they would dash off safely. Well, on the final day, I just about given up. My final day, I went back to the same position. I got in the same location, and I found a position I thought was about perfect. And I waited and waited and waited, and nothing came, not one deer. So I was dejected and gonna give up deer hunting. So I headed back to my car, and there was that tree that had fallen across the trail. And I just sat down in the tree, and the wood was completely quiet. And I felt the presence, and I turned slowly and looked over my left shoulder, and there was a deer standing only about 4 feet from me. It had walked down the trail. It had always been accustomed to seeing a log, and he didn't notice the difference that I was on that log. So anyway, obviously it dashed away, and I did not shoot a deer with the bow in North Carolina. There was a river, the Neuse, Neuse, Neuse is what I call it, river that ran near the airport. And one day I heard a young Marine talking, and he was telling about catching fish. And I showed some interest, and he invited me to come along with him. And what he did was fish, if you call it fishing. He was hunting more than fishing, at night. And he had rigged up an old inner tube. All tires had inner tubes at that time, and he had made a platform and put a battery in the middle of it. And from that battery powerful light that we used. So we would wade in knee-deep water or less along the shallow, sandy bottom to it, and look for these fish. These we were hunting for flatfish. They call them flounders, flatfish, and they were only half pound, so it'd be 8 inches long or so. But the way they would, first of all, they were born just like any other fish, not born, hatched. But very soon after they were hatched, they would slowly roll over onto a side, and the bottom eye would migrate over the nose, and so both eyes were on one side. The mouth still opened in the same position, but they would get on the sandy bottom and flutter until the sand stirred up the sand and settled back on them, and hide there until some type of prey would come by, and they would attack, and pretty accurate in getting it. So we could see, the water was clear, and we could see these shapes on the bottom that were shaped like a fish. So, and we used like broom handles with a straight, unbarbed spear on the end of it, and we just ease and spear the fish against the bottom, and we could catch them that way. Really good eating. They were really good fish. A creek near the end of one of the runways. A runway wasn't used that much, and the creek was maybe a mile long, and it ran into the Neuse River, and there was a good supply of bass, black bass, in there. I don't remember how I learned that they were there, but you could get rent a boat or take a boat out from special services at the base, and get in that creek and go fishing, and we would cast near the bank and near logs and bushes, and allow the bait to just sit there quietly for a second or two, and then twitch it, and quite often 2 and 3 pound bass would attack it like mad. We had a great time fishing for them like there. When they did use that runway, the airplanes would come over so low that it would blow the trees. The wind, it was like a heavy wind. The trees would just shake like mad when the planes went right over us for their landing, make their landing. There's a lake north of North Dakota. No, not North Dakota. North Carolina, Mattamuskeet. I had never heard of it before, but I found out some of the guys were going up there on a goose hunt. So they invited me to go along. So we got up real early in the morning, went before daylight, and they had made arrangements with a farmer near that lake, and he had built blinds out in his cornfield, and we would get in, and he'd had an old pickup. He'd drive us out to those blinds, and we were to sit there all day. We had food and something to drink, and it was a spectacle that I'll remember all my life. Just as it started to get daylight, from that lake where all those geese had roosted for the night, they started flying, and the sky was just filled with almost black with that many. There were thousands, maybe millions, who knows, but they were going out into the cornfields to eat for the day. None of them came to our cornfield. We were there all day long watching them fly over our heads high. None came down until just about, and it was just about illegal to shoot them. There's a time limit in the afternoon. 2 came right by our blind, and all the guys started shooting. I didn't even shoot. But I think we got one. I think they got one goose. So that was the story of our goose hunt. It was fun. Another hunting story, this will be the last one, was the dove hunt. Doves are fly fast and they are maneuverable, so it's a challenge to bag a mourning dove. There was a major in the squadron. I cannot remember his name, and we weren't there together very long. But he loved two things more than anything. One was smoking cigars, and the other one was hunting. And he wanted to go dove hunting, and he asked people to go along with him. I think 2 or 3 agreed to, but I was the only one that showed up, and it was hot and humid, and we got there maybe a little after lunchtime, and the doves were not moving. They were in the trees. We knew they were there, so we stumbled around in that heat, and I still have an image of him soaking wet. He was a big man. He was soaking wet with sweat, and climbing through the bushes and trees. He had unraveled his cigar, so he had probably a 6-inch piece of tobacco hanging down from his cigar. Well, finally, as it got cooler and later in the afternoon, the birds started to fly, and we had a good afternoon of shooting. Back in those days, I was pretty good. I could knock them out of the air pretty good, and I took a lot of pride in finding them every time. I didn't want to waste them. So anyway, that's my story about diversion from flying. As I mentioned before, Glenda was a good sport. She allowed me to do this, and she encouraged me to do that. Even today, I talked to her recently, and she said, "Oh, I did just fine. I was happy to have you go hunting." So that's my story for today. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.